Our MC reflected on the existence of non-human beings, known as Genjin beings, that had once been considered myths, nothing more than fictional legends. However, that was a story of the past. In the present day, the world had become more accepting, and this era was often described as one of diversity. Genjin were slowly being recognized and had begun to live alongside humans as part of society. School life was no exception, and at private Keiki High School, it was said that the largest number of Genjin could be found. Yutaka Shinsu attended that very school. He felt exhausted today, as his commute took nearly 2 hours and the distance was far from convenient. Still, he accepted it, believing it was worth it if it meant avoiding his local friends. It was not that anything serious had happened between them. In fact, he had genuinely enjoyed their company. However, he had always been overly conscious of how others perceived him. Because of this, he had ended up overthinking everything and eventually pushing himself away. All he had wanted was to enjoy himself. Yet every time he tried to read the room and act accordingly, he became more uncertain of who he really was. His teacher had once advised him to think carefully about his career choice survey, mentioning that there must be something he truly wanted to do and would enjoy. But even after hearing that, he had reached this point without any clear hopes or dreams. He quietly wondered if, in a school filled with Genjin, there might be others facing similar struggles. Perhaps, he thought, he might finally be able to make friends. As he stepped into the locker area to place his sneakers, something unexpected happened. A Genjin beside him crushed the locker with force. He quickly recognized her as Tsumiki Ogami, a classmate. She was a Genjin of the werewolf type, known for having the nature and physical abilities of a wolf and possessing remarkable strength. Yutaka thought it must be far more difficult for her to live in human society than it was for him. He also assumed that her hearing must be extremely sharp. It appeared that opening the locker had caused her some trouble. Yutaka hesitantly asked if there was a reason she was bending it. Tsumiki turned toward him and greeted him warmly, mentioning that they were in the same class. Yutaka asked if she was in a bad mood, but she quickly denied it, explaining that she was not taking out her frustration. Instead, she said that her feet were too large to fit her shoes inside the locker. Because of that, the door would not close properly, and it could even swing open unexpectedly. She mentioned that those were her favorite shoes, and she did not want to force them inside, so she had decided it might be better to slightly bend the locker door. Yutaka quietly realized that this was an example of her super strength. He gently pointed out that the locker was school property. Tsumiki confidently assured him that she could fix it. She then adjusted the locker back into place with ease, which left Yutaka slightly surprised. He suggested that she could simply place her shoes on top of the lockers, explaining that the teachers would likely understand her situation. Tsumiki paused for a moment and then commented that it was actually a very good idea. She smiled brightly and praised him, reaching out her hand for a high five. However, Yutaka did not respond immediately, and she remained standing there awkwardly. She quickly apologized, explaining that she was capable of controlling her strength and did not mean to make him uncomfortable. She thanked him again and began to walk away. At that moment, Yutaka realized what she had meant. He quickly called out to her, asking her to wait. He asked if she was not going to fist bump him instead. He then admitted that he had been somewhat rude earlier. He explained that he was overly sensitive about how others viewed him, which made him act nervously at times. He added that it was not because he was afraid of her for being a Genjin, and he wanted to make that clear. Tsumiki listened to him and slammed his arm. She smiled and said that it did not bother her at all. She mentioned that there were many people like that, and she understood completely. She then asked for his name again, and Yutaka introduced himself properly. Tsumiki nodded and mentioned that she would see him in the classroom before heading off. For Yutaka, this had been a meaningful moment. It was the first time he had spoken to a Genjin. He noted that she had sharp hearing and incredible strength, yet she was also kind and approachable. However, he quietly kept to himself that his arm had gone slightly numb, even though she had clearly held back her strength. The next day, he found himself unable to resist approaching her again. Tsumiki, despite being a Genjin, was extremely popular. She was often surrounded by other students, especially male students who hovered around her like butterflies drawn to light. They admired her beauty openly. Yutaka felt surprised, even overwhelmed, thinking about how she was constantly under the attention of so many curious and friendly eyes. Just imagining it made him feel uneasy. Still, he gathered his courage and moved toward her desk, taking a seat nearby. He observed her closely and thought that living like that must be exhausting. Tsumiki was chatting with her friends when one of them commented that her shoes were very cute. Tsumiki replied that the school did not provide shoes in her size. Yutaka found himself wondering how the topic had shifted to her feet. Tsumiki casually mentioned that even her toenails were quite large and often tore through her socks. Her friends reacted with amazement rather than discomfort. Hearing this, Yutaka noticed her tail wagging behind her. The sight caused him to chuckle. Tsumiki looked at him once more and remarked that it really was amusing, her tail, and mentioned that she would not mind if he took a photo of it. Yutaka quickly denied it, saying that it was not necessary. One of the students then asked whether shoes that large were even available for purchase. Tsumiki replied that she usually bought them online. She mentioned a store called Everything Store and suggested that they should check it out, saying it was quite reliable. She also added that she had bought her belt from there, explaining that it helped keep her tail in place and was very useful. Yutaka pointed toward her tail and asked if it was all right to keep it tied in place. Tsumiki denied it gently, explaining that keeping it under pressure was not good for her, and the belt she used already felt slightly scratchy, even if it did not hurt much. One of her friends mentioned that the school provided special skirts designed for beastmen, suggesting that it might be more comfortable. Tsumiki acknowledged that she had seen them before, but commented that she preferred her current outfit. Yutaka felt quietly amazed by her confidence as he shifted his attention toward his phone. After a moment, Tsumiki glanced at him and asked if he wanted to try touching her tail. The sudden offer caught him completely off guard. He jolted slightly and questioned what she meant by that. Tsumiki replied casually that he had been staring at it, and she assumed he might have been curious. Yutaka quickly denied it, explaining that it was not like that. He had only found it interesting. However, as he noticed several hostile stares from the other students around him, he withdrew himself and avoided further attention. Even though Tsumiki seemed particular about her fashion, she showed off her tall socks without any hesitation. She did not appear bothered by her nature or physical traits. On another day, one of her friends asked whether she transformed into a wolf during a full moon. Tsumiki denied it with a calm expression. Her friend reacted with disappointment and commented that she had wanted to see her in that form. Tsumiki explained that such things varied from person to person. Another friend then asked whether it would be frightening if it did happen and questioned whether the rumors about eating human flesh were true. Tsumiki replied cheerfully that she did not eat human meat at all and that she simply loved regular meat. Tsumiki added that such stories were likely from the past, which only made her friends shrink back slightly in nervousness. Yutaka felt that she was giving them the wrong impression without realizing it. Unable to stay silent, he spoke up and mentioned that if she truly ate human meat, she would be arrested. His sudden comment drew attention toward him. Her friends, who had been feeling uneasy, immediately relaxed and agreed that it made sense as they smiled with relief. Tsumiki acknowledged his point and then questioned why they had brought up such topics in the first place. Her friends explained that they had been reading about werewolves and had come across various claims, which made them curious about what was true. One of them even showed her a photo of a full moon from an article. The moment Tsumiki saw it, her chair suddenly moved back with a sharp sound. Her friends quickly asked what had happened and whether she was all right. However, Tsumiki seemed unable to control her reaction. She couldn't control herself before she let out a sudden howl. The sound echoed across the room, leaving everyone completely stunned and frozen. Realizing what she had done, Tsumiki immediately blushed and asked them not to tease her like that, explaining that seeing a full moon made her howl without meaning to. Her friends looked at her in amazement, realizing that it had been a genuine reaction. The boys nearby felt their hearts race, some even thinking about recording the moment. Yutaka quietly noted that Tsumiki seemed to howl whenever she saw a full moon, and soon, rumors about this began spreading across other classes as well. Later, one of the male students mentioned that several school events were coming up and suggested creating a class group chat. He then asked Tsumiki for her contact information. One of her friends pointed out that he was not even in their class, while another student commented that he could still send her an invite. At that moment, Tsumiki stood up and mentioned that since it was Friday, she wanted to get a cutlet sandwich, adding that she found it very tempting. She then walked toward the door. However, just as she was about to leave, a boy stepped in front of her. Tsumiki looked up and noticed a handsome boy standing there, surrounded by several girls who seemed drawn to him. He introduced himself as Moritaka Senga from Class 2, known to be a vampire. He politely asked her to share her contact information. The surrounding students began whispering among themselves, some asking who he was, while others explained that he was the vampire from the neighboring class, and that vampires were often known for their striking appearance. Yutaka observed the situation and felt that it must be difficult for someone to refuse such a person. Tsumiki replied calmly that she was on her way to get lunch and suggested that they talk another time. However, he insisted, mentioning that it was rare for him to personally ask someone and questioning why she would not simply take out her phone. After a brief pause, Tsumiki scoffed lightly and dismissed the request, stating that there was no need. She asked him to step aside, mentioning that he was blocking her way. After He had purposely chosen a faraway school, and the fact that there were people he did not want to meet meant that he did not like them. Yutaka mentioned that she was being very blunt. Tsumiki stated that even if they did not align, she would be able to accept it easily, and she believed there were experiences that could only be had with Genjin, asking him to give her a chance before she extended her arms. Yutaka wondered if she meant a handshake. Yutaka extended his arm as well, making Tsumiki comment that it was perfect. She moved forward and hugged Yutaka, leaving him petrified. Tsumiki grabbed him and lifted him, saying that they should get right to it and that they should go home together. She jumped onto the window. Yutaka's mind processed what was about to happen. He kept denying it, but Tsumiki assured him that she was good. He should think of it as bungee jumping. It would feel great. Yutaka questioned about a lifeline, to which Tsumiki replied that she was his lifeline as she jumped out of the window. Afterwards, as the station was reached, Yutaka was about to puke. Tsumiki apologized, saying that she had overestimated a human's semicircular canals, to which Yutaka assured that he was okay. Tsumiki questioned what he thought of leaving school with a Genjin, and she was really sorry for making him feel sick because Yutaka was in jitters. After a pause, Yutaka mentioned the classroom. He had always thought it was so big, but as they got further away, it became smaller. As the wind bustled through, his hair flapped. Yutaka stated that he thought it was something he would remember many times. He had enjoyed it, thanking Tsumiki. Suddenly, the bullet train arrived, sending strong winds. He questioned if Tsumiki was okay. Yutaka apologized, saying that the train was very loud and that she had gone out of her way to bring him. However, Tsumiki mentioned that they should do this again sometime. To his surprise, Tsumiki leaned towards his face. She touched his cheek with her face, leaving Yutaka stunned, unable to process it. Yutaka, with a flushed face, questioned if he smelled, to which Tsumiki replied that it was a greeting and that it meant they should get along as she bid him farewell, as Yutaka got onto the train. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. Yutaka received a message in the group questioning about Sunday. There was a poll asking if they wanted to leave the group. As Yutaka was about to opt out, suddenly his phone buzzed again. It was a notification from the online store, saying that he had received it after visiting once. Suddenly his phone buzzed again. It was a message from Tsumiki. She sent him a greeting. Yutaka pondered over it, wondering what it meant. He remembered her previous act, feeling that it meant they should get along. A blush spread across his face. Afterwards, the next day, as Tsumiki reached for her shoes, a letter was seen on them. She turned towards it and opened it. It was from Yutaka, but she was surprised to see the number of lines, as he thanked her for bringing him to the station the other day. He apologized if he had inconvenienced her, saying that it was just a small gesture to thank her, and mentioned that he had brought her something to show his appreciation. If she did not like it, she could cook it or grill it. Those were socks. However, there was no need for her to force herself. Tsumiki opened the locker and was surprised to see them. Afterwards, she came running and called into her classroom, calling out for Yutaka, asking if he was sure about this, to which Yutaka replied that she could cook them or grill them. Tsumiki denied that she would wear them, saying that she was not done listening to his story yet. Yutaka replied that he had told her enough, but she questioned how about coming to her place, drawing the attention of all the boys. They turned their heads towards her. Tsumiki commented that it was not every day that he got to visit a werewolf's dwelling as she smiled at him. Yutaka noted that Tsumiki was a werewolf and his first Genjin friend, but the boys could not hold themselves back. They moved towards Yutaka and dragged him out, while Yutaka tried to clarify that it was not like what they were thinking. After a few days, Tsumiki asked Yutaka again if he could come to her house that Saturday, which left him and the others completely dazed. Tsumiki questioned what was wrong and whether he felt unwell. He replied that he was fine and mentioned that he needed to check his schedule, while the male students kept glaring at him intensely. Tsumiki calmly said that it was fine. Yutaka began thinking about what he should do and recalled his earlier conversation with Tsumiki's male fans. They had questioned why he had been invited to her house when the two of them had become so close and what kind of relationship they shared. They said they wanted to know as her fans. Yutaka replied that they were just friends and thought to himself that he had not known she had a fan club. The students mentioned that she had never invited anyone else who seemed to be her friend. They talked to her often, and this was what troubled them. Yutaka felt that Tsumiki was only helping him understand his feelings, and there was no proper way to explain that to them. He sighed and thought that maybe it was not a good idea to go to her house. The people who liked her would not be pleased if he went, but she had invited him herself. He wondered if there should be limits between them since they were of the opposite gender. Thinking about it made everything feel even more confusing. In the end, he decided that he would refuse. Later, in the locker room, he declined her invitation. Tsumiki questioned why. and he replied that it would be better not to go. Tsumiki pouted slightly and commented that it was fine if he did not want to come. Yutaka picked up his shoes and felt uneasy again, as if he were being affected by others' reactions. He paused for a moment and then asked Tsumiki if he could come after all. Tsumiki smiled warmly and gave him a thumbs up, saying that he could. She added that there was no going back now and waved at him, mentioning that she would see him on Saturday. Yutaka thought to himself that he would have to leave the town after that visit. From behind, 2 male students stood straight, powering up, looking as if they were about to attack him. The scene then shifted to Tsumiki, who was at a karaoke place with her friends. One of her friends called out to her and excitedly said that she had a boyfriend, asking when that had happened. She pointed at the boy sitting nearby and mentioned that she did not know much about him. Tsumiki replied that Yutaka was only a friend. Her friend then commented that Tsumiki had invited him to her house, and Tsumiki confirmed that she had invited him as a friend. Her friend realized that Tsumiki treated boys and girls the same way, and felt that it might be a bit too much. She advised Tsumiki to be careful, saying that even if Tsumiki was not interested in him, she could never be sure what he might think. Tsumiki asked if she meant that he might try to harm her, and her friend replied that she was not exactly worried but still wanted her to stay cautious. Tsumiki then struck the machine with a powerful punch and scored 794. She confidently mentioned that Yutaka would not stand a chance against her, and if he ever tried anything, she could handle it easily. Her friends then understood her point and felt reassured. The next day, Yutaka waited for Tsumiki. He felt extremely nervous and kept questioning himself about what might happen. He wondered if he might do something rude without even realizing it. He had tried to search for answers, but nothing useful came up. Suddenly, Tsumiki called out to him. She arrived wearing casual clothes and thanked him for waiting, mentioning that they should leave. When Yutaka saw her in casual clothes, he felt slightly delighted and thought to himself that her fans would be jealous. Tsumiki pointed toward a mountain and said that it was where the werewolves lived. Yutaka questioned whether they were actually going to climb it, to which Tsumiki replied that it would be a small climb, which left Yutaka somewhat stunned. As they began climbing, Yutaka quickly realized that it was far from a small climb. He felt tired, nervous, and almost petrified by the steep path. Tsumiki, however, moved with great ease, jumping across rocks and cliffs without any hesitation. Yutaka noticed her incredible physical ability and silently admired it. Even though she appeared like a normal girl, her strength was clearly extraordinary. Tsumiki called out to him and asked him to look at her clothes, saying that the marks on them looked like paw prints. Yutaka mentioned that her clothes had become dirty. Tsumiki replied that it was natural since they were on a mountain and it could not be avoided. Yutaka commented that it seemed a bit too careless, but Tsumiki simply laughed and said it would be fine after washing. She added that she had to be more careful with her school uniform. Yutaka then mentioned that her uniform had also been covered in mud the other day, which surprised Tsumiki. She quickly replied that it had been an act of fate and should not be counted, and Yutaka agreed with a small nod. After some time, they reached a place near a large boulder. Tsumiki stepped forward and tapped it, and to Yutaka's surprise, it opened like a hidden door. Yutaka felt slightly astonished and walked inside. As he entered, he saw a huge werewolf standing there, which would have left anyone petrified, but he calmly greeted it with innocent eyes. The wolf silently placed the boulder back, sealing the entrance. Yutaka understood that it was a guard. Tsumiki guided him further inside.